After getting some rest and recovering somewhat from jet lag, we settled into a routine of where I would drive to work using an embassy vehicle. Then an embassy driver would take this vehicle and return to my home to pick up Sandy and the kids, taking them wherever they wanted to go. I would drive the same car home. Prior to our departure abroad, I had made arrangements with my father-in-law to have him facilitate the shipment of my car to Freetown. During my first official day at work, I was told by the General Services Officer that it would be at least 2 months to get my car and household effects to the embassy. As we had no vehicle, I was able to use an embassy vehicle to drive to and from work. When Sandy wanted to go somewhere, such as grocery shopping, she was able to get a car and driver to take her and the kiddos around town. The first time I went shopping with them, as I was attempting to park the car, it was completely surrounded by a noisy mob of 12 years and under street urchins. I noticed that only a few of the older boys had stuff for them to sell. Rachel and Benjamin were sitting in the back seat just taking it all in. The boys closest to the car were banging on the back door windows, pointing at their head, and then would bang on the back of the seat window. I eventually figured out that they were taken with their hair color. At that time, Rachel's hair was golden blonde, almost white, and Benjamin's hair was very, very strawberry blonde. Once they got out of the car and started to mix it up with the local crew, they were impressed with Rachel's golden blondness, but not so much with Benjamin's. After 2.5 months, I got a call from the General Services Office to let me know that both my car and household effects had arrived. I drove my car home the same day. It was in good shape and no worse for the wear. But when inquiring about my household effects, I couldn't get a straight answer from anyone as to why I couldn't get them that day. My car was in the same building. I was told that it would be a couple of days before I could have them delivered. So after a couple of days, I was told by the General Services Officer that they could be delivered. He asked that only I be present. Well, when it was delivered, I had gone back inside telling Sandy that our secret was here. I went back outside and I was shocked looking at what was left of our stock. It was a sodden pile of clothes, books, what looked like academic papers, games, Sandy's manger scene, all dripping with ragu spaghetti sauce. She was understandably upset. Sifting through this mess, she took what she could find of our stock, but ended up throwing away most of it. The admin officer said we should try to file an insurance claim on our loss against the shipping line. We did try to do so, but the amount of paperwork was daunting, confusing. Some of the requisites would be impossible to get. So we decided to take the hit on this one, drive on, and live to fight another day. We did find out that there had been a crazy man on the ship and that he had broken into several of the shipping connexes while at sea. We ended up using the embassy welcome kit for the entire of our posting. We seem to be breaking new ground every day with things we were discovering about this town. Case in point being the time a Lebanese shopkeeper told me that Freetown is the wettest city in West Africa. Typical rainy season runs from May to October, with peak torrential rainfall exceeding 400 millimeters from June to August. One time during the rainy season, I got in my car, a Dodge Omni hatchback, to go to work, and the entire inside of the car was covered with mildew. The rainy season made literally everything difficult. Cleanup at the embassy in the aftermath of extremely hot blowing winds and torrential downpours oftentimes had me cleaning up on the roof. I would be picking up trash, large bunches of palm fronds, broken furniture, even fish. The embassy was housed in a 5-story building. On its roof, a waist-high wall had been built at the roof's edge around the entire building's footprint. At that time, the only viable methods of secure and non-secure communications for the embassy was via HF technology. This was their sole link to the world. When this HF link was not working and I wasn't able to fix it, I would call in technicians from RF Monrovia to get things going again. As a last resort, Morse code would be used. In the 2 years I was in Freetown, I had only to use it once. I was talking to an airplane that was passing through Sierra Leone airspace unannounced. He asked the embassy to tell the right people who he was and why he was there. On the roof, there was an HF antenna strung in an X configuration, maintained by pulleys and strung between two 20-foot aluminum poles. One pole was attached to the outside of the waist-high wall on the street side of the building. The other pole was attached to the waist-high wall on the river side of the building. While giving the antenna the once-over, I saw that the bottom left side of the X had come loose and was flapping in the breeze. I saw that the fix would be easy. Getting it done was another story. I stood on the top of the wall, where the 20-foot pole was attached, trying to grab the flapping cable. It was still out of reach. So I got a sliding aluminum ladder, adjusted it so it was directly under the flapping wire. The ladder kept sliding on the wet pole, so I extended it about 2 more feet and tightly secured it to the pole. I started to climb up the ladder, holding on to the ladder with my left hand and reaching up and trying to grab the flapping antenna connection with my right. I felt the pole bend slightly forward as I was extending my right arm out and up. Tried one more time, reaching up but not out, but this time the pole didn't move. So I slowly and carefully secured the ladder to the pole. Then holding on to the ladder with both hands, I put the cable needing to be attached between my teeth. Very carefully, I climbed up the ladder, never looking down. I got up the pole, reattached the loose leg, and got down without issue. I returned to my office and fired up my equipment to see if the fix worked. It did, and nobody in the embassy even knew how big a bullet I just dodged. After a couple of months, we settled into a routine of sorts. As the number 2 man in a 2-man office, I was very busy doing all the tedious and time-consuming tasks that my boss had said for me to do. He said that it's good training to you as a new hire because you don't know anything about this job and all it entails. He was right in that aspect. I didn't know anything about certain aspects of my job. A case in point. About 6 months into the job, my boss went on home leave. He wouldn't get me temporary duty assistance, as was the normal practice at most of the smaller African embassies. He said that things will be slow enough, but I won't need help. He was correct. Things were slow. For a few days, I was able to keep ahead of the work. Then the clown show came to town, and everything went to hell in a handbasket. There were 5 of them, 2 from the Embassy Monrovia and 3 from Langley, Virginia. The 2 guys from the embassy were supposed to be the technicians to the 3 from Langley. The first day there, the guy in charge told me to step out of my office and stay out until they were done. Knowing the true nature of these 5, I went up on the roof and sat in a shady spot. As I was walking out onto the roof, I told the leader of the pack to let me know if he needed anything. His exact words to me were, "We don't need anything from you." Probably 1 hour later, one of them came up to me on the roof and told me that the boss wants to see you. First rattle out of the box, he asked me if I could troubleshoot his equipment with my eyes closed. I never said I could or could not. I just told him that probably wouldn't be a good idea. He didn't seem to understand why it wouldn't be a safe thing to do. I asked one of the technicians what the issue was, told him how to fix it, and went back to my room. 45 minutes later, I was back in my office. The boss was laying across the teletype machine they had brought with them. Apparently, after 10 minutes or so, their teletype machine seized up and quit on them. He asked me if I could fix this machine, with him laying across the top of it because there was a telegram with a security clearance higher than any I had. It seemed that I lacked the requisite security clearances to even have been in the room with a piece of paper and its accompanying classification. Anyhow, I said, "No, you're laying across the problem, you gotta move so I can get access to it." He didn't want to hear that. He huffed and puffed for a while, then left. The minions from Monrovia packed up the machine, paper jam and all. I sent them on their merry way, glad that I could see them in my rear view. On the home front, Sandy would make bread every Monday. She would go shopping every day with Benjamin and Rachel in tow. Benjamin was in kindergarten age at the time. The Freetown Post report had touted a school of sorts that Benjamin could attend. Sandy took him to the school to meet his teacher. She was an American whose husband was from Freetown. The school was behind Freetown's government house. Benjamin's classroom was essentially an empty room save a desk and a couple of chairs. The teacher had none of the rudimentary classroom essentials such as desks, chairs, tablets of paper, pencils, or even any type of textbook. Sandy got her teacher mom to send pencils, pens, and lesson books. Benjamin attended this quasi-kindergarten for just a short while because the 3 of them were leaving Sierra Leone early. A few weeks before they all left for home leave, Benjamin came in the house and seemingly off the cuff, he said to his mother, "Hey Mom, I got to smell tear gas today and it stinks." As the school was down the street from the government house, he may have caught the aftermath of some type of protest. During that time period, there was a large and very noisy group of local citizens who protested anything and everything at the drop of a hat. I happened to be on the embassy roof checking that my HF antenna was still intact after the previous night's storm. I was looking down the street directly in front of the embassy and saw a big crowd of people coming my way. They had surrounded and were cheering and singing the praises of their president, Siaka Stevens. He looked like he was on the way to Government House. I would guess that he had decided to mix it up with his people while wearing an enormous white cowboy hat, smiling in the back seat of a cherry red Mustang convertible. On either side of him were two obviously not from Sierra Leone buxom, bikini-wearing blondes, both of them tanned to a golden brown. As what seemed the practice in the 70s and 80s in West Africa, military coups d'etats were happening quite often, Liberia being no exception. On November 17, 1980, its government was overthrown by Staff Sergeant Sammy Doe of the Liberian Army. During the month of July 1981, the ambassador had asked me to check out the lay of the land around the embassy. She knew that I was on the roof at least once a day. She asked me to tell her, if you see anything untoward, her words, to come tell her immediately. So I was looking down the street in front of the embassy and saw in the distance hordes of people looking like they were heading in my direction. As the crowds got close, I saw what the fuss was all about. In the middle of the mob of people standing in his Jeep was Sammy Doe. He and some of his army buddies earlier in the year had staged a coup d'etat in Liberia. They had overthrown the legally elected president along with his cabinet. He had come to town on a meet and greet, new kid on the block type scenario. He sped past the embassy and zoomed up to Government House to meet up with the president. He appeared, at least to me, very underwhelming to have been able to lead the overthrow of a government. Maybe the people in the streets felt that same way, because once they found out who was in the Jeep, they went back to their air conditioning, as the president probably did. As was the practice of foreign diplomats at that time, maids and housekeepers were hired to work in their household. After several interviews, Sandy settled on two ladies, one as a housekeeper and the other as a maid. After a week, the combination of these two ladies working together under one roof proved toxic. As it happened, they were from two different ethnic tribes whose members had been feuding with each other across generations. When all the dust had settled, after this small glitch in the tribal matrix, Sandy kept the housekeeper and let the maid go. Sandy had also planned on using the housekeeper to babysit. On one occasion, after returning from a night out, we found Benjamin and the housekeeper still up. For some unknown reason, Benjamin seemed to have a guilty as hell look on his face. The housekeeper was looking at the floor. I looked down at the floor where the housekeeper was looking and saw reason for Benjamin's guilty look. He had built a fire directly on the living room carpet. He lit it and it actually got it burning. I would guess that after seeing that the carpet had been burned, he put it out and sat down to await out our return. Sandy asked the housekeeper, "What happened?" She said something to the effect that Mr. Benjamin said that he wanted to build a fire on the floor. I let him do it and watch him close so he wouldn't burn the house down. As was the practice among most Westerners in Freetown, they all joined the British Club. We joined a couple of months after we got completely settled in our new house. The club was truly a fun place to go, especially on the weekend. Boat races took place every Sunday after a bucket list curry lunch. The club manager had told me that it was the crown jewel of the amenities offered to its members. The usual 50-plus condiments offered with the lunch were extravagantly displayed with flowers and materials sourced locally. Local sculptors and artisans were also featured. Soccer and the cricket were always running on TVs in the bar and lounge area. For some reason, the club had a freshwater swimming pool. Sandy saw a way to put this pool to good use. Being the swimmer she was, she put together a water ballet class. If memory serves, I believe she opened it to the members who had daughters from 8 to 15 years who knew how to swim. She had a good turnout of girls. Sandy and the kids left Freetown early. They had to be living at our home address a certain number of days, so off they went, back to Bullard a week later. I moved out of my Hill Station home to a vacant apartment which was maintained by the embassy. Lucky for me, all around things were slow. I was able to get all the bells and whistles taken care of, along with jumping through the requisite hoops. About 6 weeks before my departure date, I received a call from the AF assignment desk informing me that my replacement had been named. She said that he is currently in Paris on vacation and plans to proceed to Freetown once done. Appropriately enough, he did some research on Freetown and called the AF assignments lady, telling her that he doesn't want to go to Freetown. He said he wanted somewhere else other than there. If he couldn't get what he wanted, he said he would quit the Foreign Service. A few days later, Sandy called the AF desk and really rattled their cage. She asked the lady who answered where I was. She said that I was on home leave, and he told them where I wasn't, which was not on home leave, and where I was, still in Freetown. After Sandy's call, things began to move right along. Another new hire was identified. It turns out that he was the ambitious type who believed anything he was told by anyone who sat behind the desk at Main State. He agreed to take my position in Freetown on the promise that he could move into the non-vacant supervisory position as soon as possible. 2 days later, he was on his way to Freetown. I got him and his family picked up and eventually all tucked into the beds in their new home at Hill Station 3. At midnight, I was on a British Caledonia flight nonstop to London. Next stop will be the American Embassy, Vienna, Austria.